The Haunted Mansion attraction in Disneyland is iconic, and while the building has been there longer, since 1969 you've been able to take a ride in a dune buggy through an amazing mansion full of happy haunts, and they're always looking for one more. It has inspired countless creators to create their own haunts, television programs, and movies. In fact, in 2003, Disney decided to take their own swing at fleshing out the property as a movie franchise. That, of course, did not go as planned, and I think Eddie Murphy probably made a horrible mistake by doing that film. But wait until you hear what they have planned now. And with who?
Ladies and gentlemen, hiss and foes, welcome to the Culture Casino!
It's difficult to make good movies. Even with a great story idea, an outline, a storyboard, you can make a steaming pile of poo. The Haunted Mansion has already left a significant stink pile since that 2003 movie that was told as a comedy horror. And of course, Eddie Murphy was the lead of that film, and it was universally panned by critics and filmgoers alike. Despite that, the movie still made a little bit of money, and even though it was considered a flop, and in comparison, it was nowhere close to the Pirates of the Caribbean films that Disney had been, very successful with prior. In fact, it led them to want to spin off even more of their attraction properties into actual film franchises. Now, Disney's been trying to make something of the Haunted Mansion for many years. They attempted to get a very qualified storyteller in Guillermo del Toro way back in 2010, and of course he was very successful with the live-action version, or I don't really know if you call that live-action, but essentially with his Pinocchio film. But nothing came out of that, and it was really odd because del Toro had delivered both a draft to Disney, which they loved, and eventually an entire screenplay, which he believed that they enjoyed and were going to do also. He even had a significant star attached to the film, one of the Ryans. I think it was Ryan Gosling. And that project just seemed to evaporate. Now, they had also tried to do a couple of different animated versions of the Haunted Mansion as well. A limited show series that was going to be just a few episodes of the Haunted Mansion, and then an entire year's worth of series that they seem to walk away from, and by a pretty good animated director too. I think that was Tingle. But anyway, nothing happened, and it just seemed like it wasn't worth taking another swing at a property that was so beloved by so many, and of course with Eddie Murphy not being able to carry it off, how would they go about doing something? It just didn't seem to pan out. So let's switch gears and say that for a week now, we've been hearing rumors that Disney may be in the process of showing the woke elements of their different production houses the door. They were trying to get rid of them, let's say. And it was plausible, and very plausible, that they had wisened up and realized that they were leaving piles of money on the table by making unwanted vanity projects that was only drawing a fraction of the audience of their other films. Now, as much as I wanted to believe this, I still saw too many saying too much, and still too many people in powerful decision-making positions to totally buy in that they were going to remove these elements from the company. It made sense that the destruction of entire IPs and disastrous earnings could force their hands to fix most of these things expediently, of course. But it looks like the powers that be are still greenlighting foolishness and promoting alienation of large portions of their audience. And Disney has elected to hire Karen Diepold to write another Haunted Mansion script based on our most revered attraction, or at least one of my most revered attractions. And You've heard correctly. The person that is responsible for the defining woke comedy of 2016, Ghostbusters, is going to be writing this film. Now, I really thought that it was interesting that they would hire somebody with such limited experience and so few successes. So let's take a look at the progression of her film career, shall we? First, we're going to start off with The Heat, which was a film starring Sandra Bullock and Melissa McCarthy. The film received a ho-hum reception from audiences, yielding a 6.6 out of 10 on IMDb, a 60 Metacritic score, and a critic score on Rotten Tomatoes of 65%. Not that Rotten Tomatoes matters, I just throw it in there. Now, the film was profitable and, the film was reportedly profitable on its $43 to $46 million budget, and it was considered a success. So the star power of Sandra Bullock obviously drew people to the property. And to some extent, Melissa McCarthy at the time was still a little popular because of her run on Mike and Molly. So that clearly helped the early box office numbers. In fact, that's where a lot of the money came from, was the early numbers and some of the international early numbers. So again, it made the overall take acceptable in the film industry. Now, this was Katie's first film, and surprise, surprise, the director of this film was Paul Feig. So, it seemed to be getting off to a good start. But the next film that Katie wrote was the disastrously bad Ghostbusters 2016, which not only went about destroying the original in so many ways that I don't actually have time to recount them here, it eked out a 5.2 on IMDb as far as its rating. It reached an artificially high Metacritic score, and the critics on Rotten Tomatoes were happy with all the virtue signaling that they were getting in this film, so they gave it a 74%. Now, it's funny, when you change the settings on Rotten Tomatoes, the top critics thought it only deserved a 62. So all of those other folks seem to rate it much, much higher. Now, the film itself, Ghostbusters 2016, is nowhere close to even breaking even. And of course, that was also directed by Paul Feig, as you know, and that was kind of the critical mass point for most audience members, film goers, that still went to the theaters. And I think that's the point at which they really just were turned off by film. In fact, I think arguably most of us were more than a little bit turned off by some other films, but that one was probably the most significant. Her third outing, and yes, she has written 3 movies, at least she's been the screenwriter on them. Katie wrote Snatched, which was supposed to be a comedy, again, or 3 comedies in a row. This yielded an even worse performance, of course, across the entire spectrum. On IMDb, the score settled at 4.5 out of 10, and on Metacritic, a 45. Rotten Tomatoes actually roasted this film at 36% with all critics, and when you go back to those top critics, it scored 23%. So this film was god-awful. I mean, even if the critics couldn't find anything to support about it, despite all of its virtue signaling and, woman feel-good stuff, the film grossed about, just under $61 million. And its estimated budget was about 42. So that means that even if they made absolutely maximum dollars on it, which they didn't, they're still underwater to the tune of $8 to $10 million. And if you know anything about advertising, it's probably like they're more to the tune of $60 million underwater, but I'm not going to go there. So as you can see, Katie's films have gotten progressively worse. At least this particular film, Snatched, was not directed by Paul Feig again. So does that actually put into question whether Paul helps or hurts? Anyway, with Rideback's Jonathan Eyrick involved, he was the producer on that film, we should expect an even worse film than what he produced with the live-action Aladdin. I think we should also expect a much lower net earning than Aladdin's live-action version, as there will be little audience interest in this film, as its predecessor was so poorly received. And again, I'm talking about the first Haunted Mansion film. As there is no word about who's directing this particular movie, I can say that I'll be even less enthusiastic if it turns out to be Levine or Feig. In fact, I expect this film to find ways to lower my expectations and interest as time goes on. Anyway, as always, feel free to tell me your thoughts about this project. Are you at all interested in a woke version of Haunted Mansion, which I'm sure we can all expect? Will the right director actually make a difference and take something that he's handed from this screenwriter who's very bad and turn it into something good? Who's to say? I can only hope. Support other independent creators here on YouTube, as they are often underpromoted by the platform in favor of the larger mainstream media outlets with their huge bias and agenda. And if you like video gaming streams and you like mixed in with that a little bit of a low-key pop culture and entertainment take, then head over to the BoredRoom and check out Ords Bored's channel. He's got some great videos and live streams that are definitely worth your time. Aside from that, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands. That's right. Do that for at least 20 seconds, everybody, because no matter what we're dealing with, it's, better not to, spread things. And until next time, bye.
Thanks for visiting today. Be sure you're subscribed and hit that for alerts.
Yay!
Of course, like and share all of the videos that you can, as it helps with the algorithm. Have a great day.